As most of you know, I am Sean Peterson. I come from the Cape Flats. I've been in the US for almost 12 years. Almost 12 years. And I've been here with a lot of ups and downs, as people would say, 12 years, like, what have you done? Where have you been? How come so long? To give you a background story, I was a tour guide in South Africa, to overland tours. I worked with Nomad Adventures. So for me, it's like I did a lot of adventures in South Africa, outside South Africa, with our border countries. I traveled within Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Lesotho, with the company called Nomad Adventures. And the background on that is also I was working as a dishwasher. Setting up, make sure everything is set up, make sure everything is right for the chefs or the guides or the tour guides, and the clients get there. And then eventually, within a span of about 6 to 8 months, I became a tour guide. With the tour guide, I also became a chef. So I started making food for clients on overland tours. So my journey basically started there, where I started making food, Cape Malay food, on overland tours, and that was my introduction to the great outdoors, I would say, and also to nature conservation, and the real exploring of different countries. I've mentioned I was a tour guide in South Africa. I worked for Nomad Adventures. I worked for him almost for 4 years, plus minus. No, I worked with him for 3 years. 2010 until 2013. I worked for him. I've traveled extensively with Nomad. First time actually leaving our borders to our neighboring countries via a truck or a car on an overland journey. That was the first time I was doing that. But I've been to the US before on a summer camp program in 2002. That was way back in the day. So yeah, it's another story for another day. But stories of baking a bread in Botswana was very highly rated on their website for the most recipe of bread recipes downloaded on their website. So for me, that achievement, after I left them, I only found after I left them, because one of my via Makoros into Botswana, the Okavango Delta, and my first time, it actually was on my second time actually going. That's when I baked my the bread. Then I was a chef by that time, but other times I was always on camp. I couldn't go to the Okavango Delta. I couldn't partake in being in the Mokoro, all those things, because only the guides and the chefs went with the clients, in the Okavango Delta. So I just stayed behind at the time that I was not a chef as yet. But the time that I did go as a chef, I actually baked my first bread in a cast iron pot, which was it came out like beautiful. Like my grandma would say, it came out lekker, and that for me was very special, because it's my first time that I actually got into Okavango Delta, got into actually making food for the clients. And the Saturday morning, actually, when they went on a hike, the clients went on a hike on Okavango Delta with the guides, and also a guide that has a rifle, because there is also lions, hippos, elephants on the island, Okavango Delta. So they had a guy that was taking them for trekking and stuff like that. So I started early morning with my recipe of the bread, add coals, dig the hole, put the coals in first, put the dough inside the bread, you know, inside the pot, inside the pot. Covered the lid, covered the lid, the pot itself with charcoal, coals and everything else, and just let it bake, you know. And once the clients got back, I took it got out of the pot, so the smell of the bread was like fresh, you know, fresh. I had a spread of marmalade, cheese, peanut butter. I made bacon, eggs. I made the whole spread, you know, for them as they were coming back. And the bread was the centerpiece, you know, because I was cutting it and the smell of the bread, and it was just like, yes, it was lovely. It was lovely. It was good to see that what I prepared was so warmly accepted and welcome, because I mean they woke up like around 4 o'clock in the morning, you know, for this hike of trekking, and when they came back and everything was laid out for them, the whole like a spur wimpy breakfast, you know what I mean, and that was the highlight of the show, and that was the recipe that people actually took from the website, from Nomad. I'm not sure if it's still there. Probably not. It's been many years. But yeah, that was a highlight of me being in Botswana, making this pot brood, called the pot brood, you know, in Botswana. One of my other stories, basically, it's we're in Kruger National Park. I was making a bunny chow, you know, for some clients, and so I told the clients, listen, I'm not making it spicy, but I'm not making it also mild. You know, it's in between. You know, it's in between. There's a fine line in between, and the clients never had Cape Malay food. You know, so a bunny chow for them was like something foreign. You know, so I made my bunny chow as additional with my salads on the side. You know, I told them like, tonight people, tonight we're not gonna eat with any utensils. We're gonna use our hands. And they were like so surprised, like, how can we do with our hands and what we're gonna eat? I'm like, well, I'll demonstrate like the bread, break a piece off, dip it into the, you know, into the, your either the mutton or the chicken, or I made a mutton bunny, and you dip it and you take the sauce on the side and you eat it. And as soon as I started digging in, so I was this one guy. It was humid outside, but it wasn't hot, you know. I was one guy, so how's the food? So you can see he's sweating profusely, like just sweating, you know. And it's like, it's so nice, but it's also so hot. So I didn't think that it was so spicy, but hey, he ate the whole thing. He enjoyed themselves. It was about eight clients that I had. They all enjoyed themselves, and that was the highlight, you know, making a bunny chow in Kruger National Park. And that was another special moment, you know. So for me, it's like, and then obviously in Namibia, one of my favorite countries and favorite cities will be Swakopmund, you know. But very special, smaller town would be Spitskop, you know. I actually made a snoek braai in Spitskop, you know, which was, but I must say, as I was busy with the grill, you know, sometimes you don't put the centerpiece of the grill all the way through, and one of the things was loose, and as I was lifting it, the snoek just slid out of the grill, you know, and the clients were like, no, pick it up, 10-second rule. So you put it back onto the grill, wipe it off, like nothing happened, add some more onions and peppers and green peppers and everything onto it, and Bob's your uncle. And that was so cool because the clients were like, no, we're not wasting food here. So that was cool. So that was really cool. And I was like, wow, they surprised me, because most people were like, no, we're not gonna eat this, But Spitskop, it was a magical moment, because they enjoyed the food as I did, you know, traditionally as a snoek, you know. We didn't eat the eyes of the snoek, but I showed them everything. The whole thing looks. We actually bought the snoek in Swakopmund, you know. We bought it in Swakopmund, the snoek, but I pre-arranged with the butchery, actually, but I bought the butchery because I couldn't find a fisheries in Swakopmund, so I pre-arranged with the butchery to have 2 snooks prepared for me, well, frozen, but well kept. And when I got there, and we did it in Spitskop, so it was quite nice. But yeah, my touring experience, it's been definitely a blessing as to how I became actually from working as a dishwasher, cleaning and making sure everything is in place. Sorry, and then also the part about touring is you meet a lot of internationals, as I mentioned before. You meet a lot of people. You get acquainted to different languages, people's habits, especially people's habits. Oh my goodness! But once you do a good job, and I obviously tried at all times when I was a dishwasher or when I became a chef or tour guide, that I give enough information, what's happening. I give enough information about where we're going, what's going to be for dinner, what's going to be for breakfast, what's going to be for lunch, And some clients will always help, Some clients will jump in, they will help and make it quicker so they can also eat. But part about being a tour guide and being a chef is like your cup is never empty. Your cup is never empty, and that is the beauty of how you actually was working with your clients, interacting with them. They didn't. Afterwards, they were not even clients anymore. They were just friends. They became friends, family members. On tour, because sometimes we would be with a client for about 3 weeks. You know. And that was just the journey, for 3 weeks. My shortest week would be 1 week tour, My longest would be back to back, meaning I'll go up 3 weeks. I'll go up all the way to Botswana, all the way to Zimbabwe, and then 3 weeks back, all the way to Cape Town. So it just depends on the clientele and how we interact and did things. I had amazing things like I flew in a helicopter, I flew in little plane, I flew in between the Okavango Delta, in Zimbabwe. I flew in between, Victoria Falls, the mountains, So that for me was special. I did flew over Okavango Delta in a small airplane, and the helicopter was in Zimbabwe, So for me it's like special moments, special things that happened, special events that happened. Met awesome people on tour, I can still recall in my head. I can still recall how they look, who they are, and all that kind of things. I'm not going to mention much names of the clients, because I don't have much photos of them to give you a reference. But I'll post here and there group photos of our interactions and stuff like that, But yeah, being a tour guide traveling through Africa was an extraordinary and special occasion, especially being a colored boy from Cape Town, being from the Cape Flats. We hardly ever get this opportunity to travel to see what our neighboring countries look like, or what's even in South Africa itself, because tourism is an expensive thing, vacations is expensive, by all means expensive, So for me it's like getting to see and actually enjoy the luxury of a 5-star hotel, a 5-star spa, a 5-star dinner, eating at the best restaurants, that for me was like unheard of as to where I come from, because those things doesn't really just happen, So I would definitely say like I've been blessed a lot, and by all God's grace, all by God's grace. So I definitely take nothing for granted as to what has happened, and how I gained the experience of actually traveling and being a tour guide and being a chef. And some people will say I'm not a chef, some people I'm a chef, some people I'm just a cook. Potato, tomato, I can make food. I can bake. It doesn't matter to me as to what category you put me in, but I know what I can do, and I have to deliver it over and over. I wish I had reviews for cooking or baking, or being a tour guide back in the day. Would have been actually nice to have those people, but back then also people would give you tip money. The tip will reflect how much they enjoyed your food and how much enjoyed your company as being on the tour. So the tips definitely show that that they value my experience, they value what I put into the food, you know. Here and there, we had some clients that like, nope, I don't like that, nope, I didn't, nope, you know. But then you get clients that is totally cuckoo. You know, some people, we will tell them like, there's a point of entry and there's a point of where you can't go beyond that point. And then some clients will actually push the envelope, you know, they wanna test it, like say how far they can go. And there's one client went as far as, we were at a conservationist place, a rehabilitation place for animals, you know. And we told the clients like, please, there's an electric fence, there's a barbed wire, for your protection. Don't put your hands to the hose to touch the animals or to do anything silly. And then, yeah, we had clients that put their hands to the fence and they touch. Like this one client, he touched a hyena's back, and we were like, why? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? And luckily for her, the time that the hyena turned around and snapped at the hand, her hand was back behind the barbed wire, behind the electric fence. And we were so shocked. The clients were all shocked. We were like, why would you do that? Why would you risk your limb just to touch the animal? You know, it's still a wild animal, even though it's in the rehabilitation center. It's still a wild animal, you know. So, but yeah, more stories to be told about my adventures. So, welcome back. So I'm Sean Peterson, and this is stories of my journey to the US. As I've mentioned before, being a tour guide was a very blessed thing that could happen to me. You know, I was very fortunate that I could be a tour guide and experience traveling through Africa. Not all of Africa, I wish, but some of Africa, like Namibia, Botswana, Zimbabwe, you know, Swaziland, Lesotho, you know. I fell in love with our neighboring country, Namibia, for the landscape itself, you know. Beautiful landscape, dunes, you know, Dune 45, Sisserin, you know, the Orange River, Namibia, you know, and learning the culture, like there is, you know, it's crazy, there's more women than men at this by the stripe, you know, and that was just like, there was more women than men, and they're all looking for husbands. They're all looking for husbands. So the guys were like, nope, we're not staying, there's no ritual, we're not gonna get married here, but they're all looking for husbands. So if you want to go stay in Namibia, you know, part of a tribe, I mean, they are definitely taking. So yeah, so then part of my journey was going to Etosha. That's why I fell in love with animals. That's why I fell in love with nature conservation, you know, National Geographics, learning more about animals itself, you know, the anatomy, antelopes, rhinos, giraffes, you know, even hyenas. I hate them, but I love them at the same time because they are the most wildest dogs you can also find that's there. So there's wild dogs and there's hyenas. You know, there's both on one place. You know, and then you'll have the one fox to always like sneak up into doing stupid things. You know, but the fox will always be somewhere. There will always be a fox somewhere. You know, but part of being part of my story being in Namibia was me falling in love with just the landscape itself, firstly. You know, seeing a sable. I don't know if you guys have ever seen a sable. The majestic way, the way it runs. It's also an antelope, you know, but the way it gallops, like it's almost like a horse, but not a horse, you know. Seeing a sable for the first time in action, in running motion, was the majestic animal that I've ever seen. You know, the horn itself, the way it curls back, just beautiful. And I wish I had a better camera back in the day, of taking the photos and stuff like that. But some clients have given me privilege and the rights actually to share some of their photos with obviously the public and stuff like that. But Etosha is a special place. It's a very special place. There's a man-made waterhole in Etosha where you can go there 24/7. There will always be animals, you know. The best time obviously is to go around 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock at night, you know, and just sit quietly and wait. You will see a rhino come along, you know. You will see elephants, about 5 to 6 or 10 elephants come through the waterhole. And there's always a stampede between the two because they are big animals and they always will be wary of the rhino. Is always wary of the elephant, always, because the rhino thinks he's strong, but the elephant, there's nothing for him, you know. They say the lion is the king of the jungle, but I beg to differ, you know. But yeah, and seeing lions in the wild was also wild, but also beautiful, you know. Seeing the animals being full of clay, and then when they go wash themselves in the little man-made hole, in the small little baby elephants walking, oh man, it's beautiful. It's definitely something to go see, you know. Definitely something to go see. So for me, that opened up my eyes to tourism, you know. Opened my eyes to what's the possibilities of doing tourism myself, you know. So that's why, you know, it's over here. Sean Peterson Tours was established. Arriving at the campsite, you know, you're setting up the campsite. You're having a little fireplace. You're having your s'mores, or you have a braai. The evening when you arrive, you know, camaraderie. Everybody just gather and tell stories. There's no TV. There's no cell phones. It's just you and your peers at sitting and enjoying either wine or water, whatever you know. But the beauty of that is just like sitting and listening to other people's stories and interacting. That's the beauty of it, you know. And then the break of dawn, you wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. You're first in line by the gate, and then you drive. You drive to Dune 45, you know. And getting there first is a must. if you me, it's a must. Park your vehicle, and you take a walk up the dune. As the sun rises, you're just sitting down and you just enjoy the view, you know. You think about everything about your life in that moment as the sun rises, because it's only you, the sunrise, and the dunes, and nothing else that matters in that moment, you know. So for me, that was moments that will live in my head, rent free, always, you know. Then you walk obviously down the the dunes. It's not it's not for the faint-hearted going up, but it's worth it. Coming down, it's even more worth it, because if I was cooking for you, you have a spread of everything that's there, you know, from your continental to your buffet style of breakfast, you know. To mention a few, you can have your omelets, you can have sunny side up, you can have your bacon and eggs if you eat bacon, you know. You can have your cold cereals, it's all there, you know. And then you can also have your pancakes, depending on my mood, or your waffles, depending on my mood. But you can also just have a normal peanut butter toast, avocado, you know, on the side, smoked salmon, you know, and just chill and just enjoy the moment, you know what I mean? So it's all about what is your palate for the morning, what you would like to eat, maybe light, whatever, and then pick it up and we continue driving, you know. So those moments are live literally rent free in my head. We'll bring in some tribes that will come dance in the Okavango Delta. Just depends obviously on the clientele, you know. But it's a special place, and making a potbread in Botswana was beautiful. So that's Botswana, you know. And then we will go all the way to Zimbabwe. Awesome. Yeah, the dollar is strong there. The dollar is strong there. But Zimbabwe is magical, man. The Victoria Falls is magical, you know. The resorts, the resorts is beautiful. And then also getting a helicopter drive between you know, the waterfall was magical. Um, so that for me is it's moments of that I always will treasure with me. That's why I'm trying to tell my stories about my adventures. You know, sort of like almost like Dora the Explorer, but not. But yeah, it's been a magical journey. You know, as a tour guide, and then obviously being back in South Africa soil. You know, Kruger National Park, been there multiple times, slept at the most luxurious places, private reserves. You know, I've slept at Aquila. I must actually revisit the names of the places that I've slept at. You know, Kakakama, um, Kwatu. You know, we visited Kwatu a lot on our way to on the N7. But Kruger National Park is obviously it's sentimental because it's from South Africa. You know, and I've never been to Kruger as many times as before, but being a tour guide, I've been there a lot within 3 years. You know, I wish there were stamps that you could actually get the stamp in your passport just to see how many times you have actually um, been put in, actually to Kruger National Park. But being a tour guide was a blessed experience. You know, and that was one of the reasons why I fell in love with the work that I was doing, the food that I was serving. You know, I went deep into my culture, went deep into my Cape Malay food. You know, actually how to appreciate certain spices, because if you're traveling for so many days, you need actually a good stock of spices. You know, and you can't find the spices just like somewhere along there's no bobby there. You know, so you had to prepare yourself and excuse me, prepare well. So what you're gonna cook, where you're gonna cook, because those things are important. Because not all places had stoves, so some was open fires, you know, and you have to think on your feet, you know. And some clients were like, "Wow, you just made this from where?" Like making meatballs, you know, making meatballs just like that, out of the blue, making meatballs, you know. I had to get I had to toast the bread on a open fire, on a grill. Toast the bread, grate the bread into my mixture. You know what I mean? And the clients were like, "Wow, this is." It was beautiful. In introducing clients to a squashy, you know, a squashy. Do you know how delicate the squashy is in the wilderness? Ooh, with some extra sugar, butter. Ooh, yes, yes. And on top of it, if you add like a mix vegetable inside your squash, yo, but tell me again, it was magical. It was magical. You know, for me, the journey as a tour guide is very special because it's an experience it's the experience of a lifetime. So if you are 18, 19, 20, you know, and you want to experience and live and do things in South Africa, outside South Africa, become a tour guide. It will humble you as much as it will reward you. You know, become a tour guide because that will give you the foundation of learning about South Africa. It will give you the foundation of learning about your neighboring countries. You know, and also you will explore nature conservation, you know, botany. You know, you can learn about the stars. You know, it's so much more that's out there that you can learn and explore if you want to get a chance to do it. You know, but yeah, being a tour guide was a special thing. I have so many stories of things that happened on tour. You know, off tour. But that's another story another day. But yeah, that's my nutshell of being a tour guide, and been blessed. I've been really blessed. So yeah, and then once we go to the US, how did I get there? So with that, I met a lot of internationals, as I mentioned, and I also met my ex-wife. You know, I met her in Durban. She's American, so I met her in Durban. But crazy part is she's also Indian that I met in Durban. So met her around say 2010, 2011. You know, we stayed in contact for about I was at 2 years, 3 years before I found out about the program to come to the US. Once I found out about the program to come to the US, I resigned from my overland tour. I resigned from being a tour guide or chef from overland tour company, and then the program that I came with was with Workaway International. So Workaway International gave me opportunity to come to the US as a prep chef. Nope, as a dishwasher. So I came again as a dishwasher. I started again from scratch. I started from the bottom, and that was the starting of my journey in the US. 2013 in October, and for me that was so full circle on that, because eventually got married. We rekindled our love, we rekindled our friendship, we rekindled what we wanted to achieve or do. And then we fell in love again. We got married. I stayed in New York for about almost 7 years. So stayed a long time in New York, in Brooklyn. After divorce, as most people know, like if you've been in love or fell out of love or got a divorce, it's always going to be up and down. And that was part of my second part of being in the US. I would say the third part of being in the US. The first part was being on a program. The second part was falling in love, getting married, getting a green card, staying in the US. Third part is now divorce. What do I do now? Do I go home? Do I stay? And I decided, okay, I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay in the US. And where do I go? I go to Florida. I started in Florida in 2013. I came back into Florida in 2022. Yeah, came back in 22 in Florida, and then started my journey again back to the same country club that I started the first time with. So now I came back as something different. I came back as a card room attendee, meaning I'm gonna work in a card room and serve the members drinks, food, make sure that things are in order. That eventually became something different. Work in different departments again within the food and beverage sector, and eventually it landed up to be an AV technician. I have a little bit of background in AV in South Africa, but not a lot. So this was another opportunity to step up again, or evolve. So I became an AV technician. Within that, because I have a lot of different what I call it, passions, and that was part of my other passion, is also to work with technology, and AV was part of it. So became an AV technician in 2024. And then full circle, started as a dishwasher. Now I am a AV technician at the biggest country club in the US. And then that for me was another stepping stone, another moment to celebrate about what I've achieved so far in the US. But at the same time, I was blessed throughout, not blessed with finances, but blessed with opportunity, and also with that came opportunity to go study. I always love photography, as I mentioned before, about meeting the Germans, about their photography, National Geographics, about what they were doing with the photos, the cameras, the lenses, the equipment, So long time had a passion since about 2010, doing photography. Bought a small camera, always taking photos, doing small things with that, learning the essence in the settings of not a DSLR camera, but a smaller camera, as what we have now today. I have a Nikon Z2, camera, which is mirrorless. Love it to bits. Still figuring out how to work everything, because every camera comes with a lot of settings, a lot of different factors on it that you can actually learn and adjust. But photography is all about the art, Photography is not set in stone. Photography is so much more than what people just think photography is, So you can capture anything and everything, and also make it art itself. So you can go from capturing a high resolution photo to a very blurry photo, but also very still image within that blurry photo. So there's a lot of things you can capture within photography. So I fell back into loving photography. I went to go school. I studied at Palm Beach State College, photography.